Okay, so now that we have the basics of sports betting bets and payout odds down, let's think about how sports books make a profit. Okay, so I'm going to use an example here to think about how they set their payout odds in order to anticipate a profit occurring. Okay, and to be clear, and you'll see this in a bit, to be clear, sports books do not always profit. Sometimes sports books will go an entire month losing money. Okay, there are ways for them to lose, so they're kind of different from other parts of the casino. It's pretty unusual for a sports book or for a casino to lose on the slots for an entire month. I can't really anticipate that happening. Maybe if there's a huge jackpot or something. Very unlikely, blackjack, craps, etc. But it does happen in sports books, and there's a few reasons why that's the case. So they're going to set their payout odds to create likely profits. But they don't always set odds so that they have perfect or guaranteed profits. It's actually really tough to do that. So let me give you an example. Biggest game of the year for sports betting in most years is the Super Bowl. All right, lots of people make bets on lots of different things in the Super Bowl, and who's going to win the game is one of the bigger ones. Okay, so who will win Super Bowl 54? Let's say that we're running our own little sports book, okay, and we're going to try to maximize our profits. Here's what we would do first, okay? We would want to think about what do we believe is likely to happen, okay? First, what do we believe is likely to happen? And then two, we would think about what does the public expect is going to happen, okay? And we'll get to that in a second. So let's answer that first one first. What do we expect is going to happen? So first we would try to figure out an implied or expected probabilities. And I try to give some values here that are really close to actually what was anticipated. So we might think that the Chiefs are likely to win. So we might set their probability using payout odds at minus 120. And we would do the same thing for the 49ers. And set that at plus 120. You should be able to do the math using the formula that we had before to figure out what these implied probabilities are. And this is what you should find. Kind of some weird values here. Okay? So that would be our expected probabilities. So think about it. If these are the payout odds that the sports book used, do you think they would make a big profit or not? Well, let's think about it. Okay, so let's solve for an expected value equation. Let's say that I'm going to make a $120 bet on the Chiefs. Okay, you guys remember how to do EV, I hope, right? We need to figure out the probabilities and we need to figure out the payouts. So if this is what we expect the probabilities to be, let's think about the expected payouts as well. So let's start with the probability of a win. The probability of win has been estimated at 54.54%. Okay? And if I win, how much am I going to win? What would the net pay be? If I'm making a $120 bet on the Chiefs, that minus 120 means I need to bet 120 in order to earn a $100 profit. Okay? And by the way, that ratio always holds. So if I bet 60, that would earn a $50 profit if I win. Okay, so you can bet still any amount of money. So this would be a $100 profit for me if I win. And if I lose, I earn a $0 profit. And if you solve for that, as long as I set everything up correctly there, the expected value is $0. In other words, the player has no advantage and the casino has no advantage. Does that seem like a good deal for the casino? Of course not, because the casino's got to take on risk. They've got to pay their electric bills, water bills, employees, everything else. They need a profit margin, okay? So that does not work. So what they're going to do is adjust this. This is what their expected probabilities are, okay? That's what they think would best reflect the anticipated outcome of the game. But they will adjust that. The payout odds instead will look something like this, okay? The Chiefs, we think, should be minus 120 if there's no house advantage, okay, which gives them about a 54.5% chance of winning. But we're going to adjust that to 130, okay? At minus 130, that basically makes the profit smaller on a winning bet on the Chiefs. If you want to win $100, you now have to bet 130 in order to win, okay? And likewise, with the 49ers, I'm going to adjust this payout down. Instead of paying out plus 120, I might adjust that to plus 110, okay? And so now what you have is you've sort of priced in the profits. And if we now add up these probabilities, so if we convert these into probabilities, we'll get a number now that no longer adds up to 100, okay? If you add these two values up, they no longer sum up to 100. In fact, I think they sum up to 104.1%, okay? What that means is the casino is paying you as if you have a better chance than you really do. All right, let me say that again. If you make either of these bets, right, if you bet on the 49ers, the casino thinks they have about a 45.5% chance. But they're going to pay you as if you have about a 48% chance. So when you add these up, what this is telling you is the casino is paying you as if you have a higher probability than you really do, okay? And that's how they make their profits. So let me see if I can use that information here to solve for a new EV. I'm going to kind of rewrite some of that information here. Let's just think about this from the 49ers perspective. Okay, so this is the numbers we just used, and we're going to use that to understand where house advantage comes from. Okay, so let's say that I make a $100 bet on the 49ers. Okay, solve for the EV. We've got everything that we need here. We've got the best guess we have of the probability, okay? So on the exam or quiz, I'll say, assume that really is the probability. You never actually know what the probability is, right? There's no way to know for sure what the probability is, but this is the way the casino thinks about things. They believe this is a really good guess, and they're going to pay players less than they should as a result. So let's think about the EV here. The EV of a $100 bet on the 49ers. The probability of winning is at 45.45%. If I win, I get paid 110, right? That's what that plus value there means. $100 bet wins 110 bucks. And then I got a 54.54% chance of winning nothing. So if you solve for that, you should find the EV is negative 4.54, meaning that the player now has a negative expectation, which makes sense. Casinos have to make a profit. They have to cover their costs, right? So this is what the player expects to lose. So the house advantage would be just to flip that around, divide it by 100, and so you get about a 4.5% house advantage on this bet, which is what the casino needs to make this feasible. Let's do the same thing now for the Chiefs. Add in a little wrinkle here. So the anticipated probability for the Chiefs is minus 120. The payout odds are minus 130. Okay, so you got to bet more than 120 in order to win $100, even though 120 would be the break-even amount over the long run. Okay? So let's say that I make an $8 bet on the Chiefs. Okay? This is going to complicate things here a little bit because an $8 bet no longer works for this simple payout that we've been thinking about before, right? This suggests that you've got to bet 130 in order to win $100, and this $8 bet is not going to work for this, okay? So here's a formula that you need. Okay, it's another formula for you. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it's easy. If you have the formula in front of you, you're just plugging in values. So this is going to solve for the net pay or profit on a bet. You take the bet size and you multiply it times 100 divided by the payout odds. Okay, so in this case, the bet size is 8. Multiply that times 100 divided by 130, and you get a payout of, it's kind of a wacky number here, and I don't want to round it yet, but about $6.15. Okay. So this is how much you would win on an $8 bet if you make that bet. And typically you're going to be able to see what the profit is before you make the wager, all right? But it's nice if you're really trying to get good at this stuff and understand how it works. It's nice to be able to anticipate this ahead of time, okay? So that's how much the payout would be. All right. Thinking still about that $8 bet. Okay. Thinking still about that $8 bet. Now we have everything we need to solve for the expected value. Okay. The expected value is going to be the probabilities times the payouts for all possibilities. So the probability of winning is 54.54%, repeating. And remember, this is the probability I'm going to use, all right? This is the probability based on what they expect to happen. This is their payout odds. So let's make sure we don't confuse those, okay? I'm using this one because this is based on what they expect to happen. So I've got a 54.5% chance of winning. I know how much I'll win if that happens. All right? And then I got a 0 over here if I want to write this out. Okay. This is pretty much always going to be 0 over here because if you lose, you don't win anything most of the time. All right? And what you should get if you solve for all this is an EV of that. Obviously, if I ask on the exam, you know, what is the EV? You don't have to give me all these numbers. But guess what? There's one more thing I might ask you to calculate for, and I never want to round until I'm done making all my calculations. So the house advantage here would come out to 2.797. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Getting ahead of myself. I need to take that value I just solved for there and divide it by the bet size, right? Divide it by that $8. And so I should get a house advantage of 3.5% roughly. Make sure that's what you get, all right? Run through those numbers yourself and make sure you get the same answer as me on that one. So from a practical standpoint, a couple of keys for casinos to think about. One, they've got to figure out the probabilities of an outcome. So what that means is they need experts. They can't just willy-nilly set odds randomly. They've got to figure out what is likely to happen. So these casinos will have some of the experts of the world setting these lines and setting these payouts. Okay, So if there's the Super Bowl's coming up, a casino, if they set the lines wrong, so if they say we're going to pay out the Chiefs like they're an underdog, but everybody expects that they'll probably win, that could be a disaster for the casino. So the casino really has to estimate what the probabilities are. So they need some people who really know what they're doing setting these probabilities. And so some of the sharpest minds in the world for sports betting actually work for the casinos. Right. The second key to recognize here is that they always need to set the payout odds below the expected true odds. And what I mean by that is they're going to pay the players less than what the true probabilities would expect them to pay. And this is where the profits come from, right? If you're a casino, this is where your profits come from. It's setting those payouts aside from the probabilities. And those probabilities can be, the difference can be pretty small, right? They might be paying out a team at 63%, right? They expect the team to have a 63% chance of winning, but they may only actually be paying players 66% chance of winning, all right? And so if they get that probability a little bit off, they can get hammered, okay? And the third one here that we're going to get to in the next video is thinking about the public. And this is where some of the art comes into it. It's not just about probabilities of winning. It's also thinking about what is the public going to do. And we'll address that in the next video.